All right.
Do you mind if I share my
Thank you very
screen?
much for being here with the Alkaloid Mastermind Roundtable. And Andrew is a former Alkaloid who had to move out of state, but he misses us terribly. So tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're such a badass at what you do.
Well, it's a little overly flattering, but yeah, so I work in digital marketing, and I've been in that space for about 12 years now. A lot of that focus has been in search marketing, which we'll be talking a little bit about today. So yeah, my hope with this is just to basically provide some basic overview of how this stuff works in case you're interested in doing it yourself, or if you're looking at like hiring somebody or working with somebody, some things to look out for. And just so you know too, I'm not in the contracting game anymore. I'm not looking to drum up your business or anything like that. This is all just good stuff to know if you're working on your own digital marketing time, you know? So yeah, that's basically what we're going to be going over today.
So Andrew, do you want to start with your list of your framework?
Yeah, I've got some slides built out. I don't know if I can share my screen or anything like that.
You can in a moment.
Cool.
Make you a co-host.
Sweet.
If I can remember how. I don't do it that often. Oh, here. There we go.
Cool. Okay. Got it. All right. Let me know if y'all can see that. Good? Okay. All right. So today I'm going to be talking about search engine marketing, abbreviated SEM. What this basically is an umbrella term to two different ways of getting your results to get more visibility in search engines like Google, Bing, Ask Jeeves, you know, whatever you might be trying to get active in. There's two different ways to do that. So pay-per-click, i.e. PPC, and SEO, search engine optimization. They're both really great things to run in tandem, but there are some core differences between how they work. And so this table kind of breaks that down a little bit for you. So pay-per-click, you know, the basic idea is you can just pay your way to the top and you can pretty much do it right away. SEO, on the other hand, it's more of a battle and you have to kind of earn your way in there. Pay-per-click, it's something you can do immediately. Like you don't really need to have any lag time to get started whenever you want to get rolling, which is great. But obviously when you turn those ads off, your traffic goes away. SEO, on the other hand, it does take a considerable, much longer time to be able to show up, but the impacts from that are often a lot longer lasting as well. In PPC, there are just a lot of tools and levers you can pull to get as granular as you want in your targeting. SEO, on the other hand, it's much more influential in nature than it is something that you can directly control. But both, again, are great for driving your traffic to your website. Pay-per-click also has this benefit of being like a testing tool. You can learn a lot about how your audience thinks about things that can be used to inform SEO. SEO, you can do testing in there too technically, but it's a lot more complicated and a lot of people don't go down that road. So it's one that tends to be a little bit more influential in nature. Something people ask me a lot is, you know, is one more important than the other? And I always kind of fall back on it really depends on what your goals are. If you're looking to, say, increase traffic and conversions, which is a lot of people's most common goals they're trying to do, maybe that's referrals if you're an attorney, or that's, you know, if people are interested in your hypnotic services, you know, they might try to contact you through a form or something like that. A lot of times both are basically equally important if those are what you're trying to do. A common myth I hear is that SEM is, you know, people are worried that pay-per-click might cannibalize what would be your organic results. And I'd say this is very rarely the case. I've never really seen that as something that's happened before. It has happened. I've seen that when people are just dumping tons of money recklessly into a pay-per-click program. But for the most part, the way a search engine result page works from a click behavior perspective, and there's been a lot of studies to confirm this, at least 40% of your clicks on a page is always going to go to one of these paid listing spots. And it makes sense because if you're taking a look at just how that search engine result page looks, it's dominated by ads. people don't tend to scroll down very much. So your whole above the fold area tends to be paid driven. An additional, say, less than 60% goes to what are called organic listings. And those are the ones that you can't pay. You have to earn your way in there. So, there's a mix of activity that happens when people reach this page. Generally of that 60%, this very bottom little area, that's where the majority of those clicks are going to go. So anything beyond position 5 and certainly beyond the first page of results are basically invisible as far as Google and the users are concerned. Local SEO, it sounds like this might be applicable to you both, and that's cool, and others out there. Just to kind of step back about what local SEO refers to, Google in general is trying to make their results as personalized as possible. So they really want to know, like, what can I do to serve somebody the most unique results that are unique to them? And among those factors is, where is that user located? And should a given search result, generate different types of results based on those locations? So it's just as an example of something that's not like locally focused. If I search something like how were the rings of Saturn formed, that really shouldn't look different for me living in Dayton, Ohio, as it should for anybody living in Atlanta. In contrast, if I've got like a gardening supply store, now, yes, those results should look different for me in Dayton as they should for somebody that's living in Atlanta. So you're looking at your Google Maps results, basically, which are these guys down here. So general rule of thumb, if your business operates more like the Saturn search in some kind of way, local SEO probably doesn't apply to you. If it does, and you're more the gardening variety, then yes, like local SEO is for you. And we'll talk a little bit about how to optimize those results here in a second.
So I would think that, Jadelle, yours is local, but Amy, you could deal with people across the nation. Would you guys agree with, I mean, does that make sense? I don't know.
Yeah, it does. I mean, I have both apply for me. I get people locally, and then so generally if it's not local, then that's going to be referral based.
Okay.
And we've broadened our horizon since this pandemic, that we have actually gone global with Zoom. We've been using Zoom, so we actually want to explore our options is expanding our reach globally. So it can go either way. Yeah,
that's pretty common for a lot of folks right now because of the pandemic. They have like these broadened ways that they can promote their businesses. Yeah. So really, if that's applicable to you, I'd say some kind of mix of keeping your local presence, firmly down there, because these are really, I wouldn't say easy to influence, but they're a lot quicker than, your typical run-of-the-mill organic listings. And then the pay-per-click spots, because as you're looking at right here, that's literally the entirety of the search result page in this case for any scrolling activity. So they can both be influenced pretty quickly. Position 0, you might have heard this used in the SEO world. And what this basically is, it used to be known as the knowledge graph. And it's pretty simple. You've probably seen this a lot in your own searching habits. Google is basically pulling answers on pages directly for a user's question in the search result page itself. And there's some ways that you can influence showing up here. This is great if you're doing something like a blog, and we'll talk a lot about that momentarily. But focusing on snippets of text that quickly answer those questions. So it's more about knowing what those questions might be first, and then providing really quick answers to those things. Using bulleted or numbered lists whenever applicable. As you can see in the example here, that's a great way to basically make it easy for Google to know what to pull out of your page. And then if you use something like subheaders on your page, those big bolded texts that separate chunks of paragraphs, you can feature those as questions that people might ask, and then just provide a quick, short answer to that. So a lot of people wonder sometimes, is showing up here going to hurt my traffic activity? Like, it's almost like, Google's already showing my content, so is that bad for me? And the answer is actually no. Click-through rates on these things tend to be the highest of any kind of source. So really, if you're showing up here, you're in a really good standing, and you're going to get a lot of really awesome traffic. So here's like a quick snapshot, and I'll try to send these slides to you so you've got these handy. But here's like you're just down and dirty. How can I do SEO real quick? One of the greatest ways to do that, the most important thing, is just to constantly create the best, most unique content that you possibly can. And I always recommend blogs as a way to do this, because those are kind of free form in a way. They're not going to rupture the architecture of your website or your navigational, anything like that. They're just a really great way to keep producing pieces of content. And they're all capable of reaching Google's index. Every single one of those can be an entry point for somebody in search. They might not be a ton of traffic in those small little buckets, but combined after a couple of years of activity, you've got a whole wealth stored for people to be able to access your site. So what I recommend doing, in case you're looking for content ideas, and that's always a difficulty for a lot of folks, is just think about common problems or questions your customers have, and not a bunch of questions at once. Think granularly, like what's one question or one problem that's very typical in my business, and then try to craft a blog post that addresses that with a unique perspective about it in a just really straightforward kind of manner. That's like SEO gold as far as I'm concerned, and it's really easy to do. It's a low cost. It just takes some time and dedicated effort. A little more advanced and a little less impactful is doing some of this work on your HTML. If you have something like WordPress access, maybe you're using a plugin like Yoast. I've got that mentioned in the back of this presentation as well. But looking at these items like your title tags, your meta descriptions, your page headers, we talked about that on the position 0 slide, but those are great places to include keywords. The copy itself, you don't want to like stuff keywords all over the place on your page copy, like that's going to ruin it, and I don't think that you should do that. But that is a helpful place to basically add a little bit of keyword sprinkle. Your images on your page as well, so how you save images and upload them to your website, that can have a big impact, and the alt tags that accompany those as well. So if you've ever hovered over an image on a website and you've seen a little pop-up thing appear and it describes what that image is, that's what that alt tag is, and that's a really great spot for SEO as well. And finally, interlinking throughout your website. So a really big way that Google finds content is literally just by sending these crawlers out on your website and having them explore links on there. So maybe instead of things like read more or contact us, try to be specific about what that page is linking to. You can use keywords in that hyperlink. So maybe it's explore legal services for immigration or something like that. And that's like the whole link. Like you've got keywords included on that. It's descriptive. If local SEO applies to you, so how do you influence those results we looked at on the Google Maps earlier? First and foremost, it's just be a good business. I know that sounds like stupid information, but it's important. So things like getting as many high quality, legitimate reviews as you can, like that is the biggest weighted factor into influencing those results. So encourage people, if you can, tactfully to fill those things out in an honest way. And hopefully you're killing it and you're getting good reviews all the time. In light of that, things like uploading high quality photos or videos, just keeping that presence alive and healthy, that's a great way to do that. You're including, just really great examples of what your business feels like to a customer. Keeping all of your info up to date. That stuff can change a lot, and I know it might be kind of odd in the pandemic right now if you have irregular hours or you're operating in a different kind of way, but try to keep that stuff refreshed as much as possible. And then just, the description of your page, take some time, like really craft that in a meaningful way. And yes, you can drop maybe a keyword or two in there too to try to get a little added visibility in those map results.
So I actually have on my calendar as a recurring activity is to go back and look at, because I have 3 years of blog posts that occur once or twice a month. And I update it. And if I do a new blog post, I go back and I look, okay, how does this apply to maybe a blog that I did before? So I have internal links and external links in the in my blog posts, and I don't like writing. So there are people, if you have an idea for a blog, but you don't want to actually write it, you can hire people to do that, and it doesn't cost a lot.
Totally. Good stuff. I was going to save this maybe for the end, but I think I'm going to share this now. So there's a really good keyword research tool that's available called Answer the Public. It's just a cloud-based thing. It's a great place to drum up title ideas for blogs. Maybe we could just do a quick overview of this, and you can give me some ideas here. So this guy kind of creeps me out. I'm not gonna lie. I don't like this video here, but this is a great tool. So I don't know. Can somebody give me like a keyword idea, like whatever you want me to investigate here? Sorry.
Atlanta hypnotist. I don't know.
All right, we'll do both. What was the first one? I'm sorry, Jadelle.
Atlanta hypnotist or hypnotist in Atlanta.
HY, right? Is that right?
Oh my gosh, I've been on this page. He is kind of creepy.
Yeah. The results are cool though. So what's going to give you are like a question wheel. So based on your keyword idea, and it takes a minute, it's crawling the web and it's using Google data to provide some keyword ideas based around that. I didn't spell that correctly. Let's try, can we maybe do,
Yeah. This is a pretty cool site though.
let's try a different one. Maybe like, how does hypnosis?
Yeah. I was going to say, or maybe hypnotherapy. Isn't that really what you guys do, Jadelle, is hypnotherapy?
Yes, and we use the terms hypnotist and hypnotherapist interchangeably, but hypnotherapy would probably generate better results.
I would think so. Yeah.
Well, so here's the limitation of this tool. You can only do a couple of searches a day, and I've already used it a couple of different times. I wish I could show you an example in here. I could probably look up some online. Hold on one second.
Here, I can do it.
Okay, cool.
I'll work on that while you talk about something else.
Perfect. They do have a subscription-based model if you want to do it indefinitely. I usually just pop in there, maybe like, you get like a couple a day. So if you just pull down some good examples, you can write some blogs based around those things.
And just to clarify, hypnotist and hypnotherapist, hypnotist is usually thought of as like a stage hypnotist, someone that you would go to see like a performance. A hypnotherapist is more in a clinical setting, which is
Gotcha.
what we do.
Gotcha. I'm glad you're making that distinction too, because I know one challenge, especially if you're working with SEO vendors or pay-per-click vendors, is they don't always understand the intent of some of the keywords that you're providing them, and they can pair you with things that might sound right to them, but can produce some pretty irrelevant results. Title tags and meta descriptions. So that we talked about this a minute ago, and these are a great place to be able to provide some keyword insertion opportunities. So what these are, you're not looking at a paid listing. This is literally an organic listing. It's just what you click on when you find a search result page. You know, a lot of times SEO vendors will treat these as keyword stuffing ideas. They just throw keywords at your title tag and keywords in the meta description. Keep in mind, this is more like the organic ad copy of your page. So yes, keywords can be important here, but you really want to make sure that you're writing it in a way that's like enticing a click. Like that's the whole point. It's basically an ad listing on an organic result page. So try to write it creatively. There are some limitations in each one of these elements. So the thing you can actually click on, that's your title tag. That's limited often to about 60-ish characters. Oops. Versus the meta description, which is more like the ad copy, if you will. You get about 150 to 160 characters there. I use this example because I really like how it renders. Nothing got cut off, right? So they did write it within those character restrictions. You don't see that dreaded ... thing appearing that kind of clips some of your message. And it's also written in an enticing way, right? Like this is just providing a really great example of what you can expect to see when you reach the page. It's not a lot, so it's just enough to get me thinking about what I want to learn more about.
I have the results I can show you if you want.
Ooh, yeah.
Okay, give me a second. Hey, Jeremy. So can you see that?
Yeah, so now you're getting some good ideas here because you can literally cherry pick some of these things if there's one that jumps out to you. This is showing you exactly how they're thinking about these issues and how they're like typing them in as questions in search engines. So try to be specific, right? So, yeah, like, there's one about weight loss in there, quitting smoking. I don't know if those are relevant to you, Janelle, but like if they are, you could produce one blog post about those specific things and just describe it concisely.
Right.
And that can be a great
Okay.
SEO opportunity.
Yeah, those are the two main things that hypnotherapy is used for that's well known: smoking cessation and weight loss. So
Yeah.
All right, back to you. Andy.
Cool. Can we do one example for Amy just really quick too? I don't know if you guys have one, but I'd like to do one of hers so she can kind of see this.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you could do work visa.
Maybe like how to earn, because I would always try to frame these as a question first if you can. So, like how
Okay. Yeah.
how to get a work visa.
How to get a U.S. work visa.
Perfect. What I love about this tool too is when you see keywords like that, they're very specific and like long tail. So you got maxed out as well. I guess they've trimmed this down a little bit, but I try using the tool if you get a chance when you're out of this meeting or whatever. A lot of times, even stuff like that though is more specific and can be broken down into subtopics. Like it might seem like that's a really specific question already, and it is. But as we just saw in the hypnotherapy answer, maybe it's not just how does hypnotherapy work? It's how do you treat alcoholism, or how do you quit smoking, or how do you get weight loss, or something like that.
So go ahead and you can have the screen back, Andrew.
Okay. Yeah, one second. All right, so we're on how long does SEO take to work? And that's a difficult question because it really depends on what your current content creation looks like. So say you are regularly publishing blogs like the examples we just pulled up, you're doing that maybe once a week or something like that with really specific answers to common questions that customers have. You've essentially incentivized Google at this point to come back to your website regularly. Literally, you can get indexed same day as publication. You've probably seen this already happening in your own search life. Maybe you're Googling the news, something that happened in the news, and those are all like articles that got published and sometimes 10 minutes ago. So it's not like this. There used to be this myth that it takes sometimes like a month or 2 weeks for content to show up. That's not really true. It can literally happen in real time. It just depends on how incentivized Google is to check your website for new content. So in contrast, say you've had your content game dormant for years and you don't regularly publish anything. It's not like you can just flip a switch and expect instant gains. You kind of have to prove your way into Google a little while first. So typically, if that's relevant for you, experts say expect anywhere from a minimum of 6 months to 2 years of really committed content creation to start seeing that stuff paying off more. But again, like it's a long game, yes, but it can have some tremendous impacts, not just for web traffic, but ultimately like your bottom line.
And I mean, Andrew, you and I've talked about mine. I mean, the fact that like I'm consistently putting stuff out there and updating blog. I mean, like it's work. And if you don't, if you know, like I make, it's a calendar item for me that I go and I visit every single month. So I see you photobombing, Andrew. So I don't forget to do it. And then like 6 months goes by and I haven't done it. This is something that I do regularly because it makes a difference. And it's a long game, but the more I do it, the better, the less I have to pay for Google AdWords and the more organic searches I get, which is also good.
Yeah, that's the dream, you know? All right, Black Hat stuff. So if you're looking at tactics online or you're talking to an SEO vendor and they recommend any of the following, fire them and fire them fast, truthfully. And I mean that because and I don't mean to be a jerk about it, but I still see a lot of this stuff creeping up. And a lot of times these are people who are getting paid for doing these types of activities. It's basically anything that's attempting to trick Google to showing up first. And there's a lot of ways that this can go down, but here's some of the more common ones to look out for. Keyword stuffing. So you're just cramming keywords everywhere and ruining what would otherwise be great content. Don't do that. Think about Google, right? Like the whole way that it operates is they're providing great results for users. They also are building like self-driving cars. Like they know what your page is about. You don't need to drill it to death with a keyword in there. Like they can understand what the copy is about. So keywords are helpful, but it has to be very light and very purposefully designed. Copy stuffing. Another common myth is that word count matters. Like you might have read, oh, a page has to be at least 1,000 words for it to rank. Like that is not true. Google swears up and down that they do not factor in specifically word count. They literally just care about quality. A lot of times you might see a correlation between page length and ranking factors, but that's just because people are answering a question fairly, right? So it's not like Google's arbitrarily saying your page must be 1,000 words. So don't worry about that. Just try to write the best answers you can to those questions you're finding from something like Answer the Public or elsewhere. Buying links. Link farms were a thing that started popping up like a long time ago. Linking, from as far as Google is concerned, is almost like a vote to your website. So if they see a bunch of different websites linking to you, they assume you're authoritative because people are vouching for you, right? So a way people try to trick that is by buying links on these farms. They're basically just meaningless websites with nothing but links, and they point out to different places and it's for sale. It's very easy to detect, and you can get banned from search results by doing that. That actually happened to JCPenney in, I think, 2011, right around the holiday shopping season. They got caught doing this and were completely banished from search results for an entire season. It destroyed them economically that year. That's old school though. So a newer way this looks, and this is almost a continuation of link farms, are content farms. So, okay, we know that we can't just buy links on a page. It's just listing links. We need to have a little more content there. So content farms are just websites of meaningless, no organized content. It's just random little articles of, 500 words stuffed with just a bunch of crap. And there is a link in there, and it looks a little more sophisticated than the link farm did, but there's no connection, there's no theme there. So yeah, avoid content farms. It's not to say that you shouldn't hire a copywriter. Certainly do that if you have the ability to do so. They can provide some really great work and save you some time, but just make sure that it's dedicated content that you're purchasing. Hiding keywords, I still see this once in a while. I don't know why people waste their time with this. The idea is let's match the font color of our keywords that we're stuffing in the page to the background. So you can't see it as a user, but Google will still crawl it. Like, how would they ever find out, right? There's no way. Like, I've totally tricked Google, right? You can't trick Google. They have like something like 1 trillion plus websites in their search index at this point. They've seen literally everything you can do. So try to just focus on providing the best content and user experience you can. Shy of that, if you think you're shortcutting your way to that front of the SEO line, that's probably a black hat technique, so avoid it at all costs. Sorry to preach for a little bit, but it can get people in a lot of trouble when I try to help people out. Pay-per-click. So we talked a lot about SEO. I'm going to keep the pay-per-click section a little bit short here because this rabbit hole is incredibly deep. So just your basics, what should you know before you kind of either start doing it yourself or hire somebody to do it? So the way that it works, it's basically an auctioning system. So you have these different competing websites out there in this marketplace, the Google search marketplace, and they're all bidding like you would in an auction for a given keyword. Literally every time somebody searches, this auction takes place. And it's kind of cool because Google literally has something like 60,000 searches per second. So there's 60,000 auctions per second happening in the universe out there. So it's this really rapid fire cool thing. How Google determines who wins that auction and ranks them in what order, it's based on 2 things. So one, yes, it's your bid, right? So they want to go to the highest bidder whenever possible. That's how they make money. But they also don't want to just have you buy your way in with a crappy website. So they do factor in the quality of that website when determining that too. So it's a mix of the 2 things, your bid and your website quality. With PPC, I would say as a caveat, the biggest thing to look out for is focusing on the quality of your traffic. So Jadel, we gave that example earlier of distinguishing between hypnotist and hypnotherapy. So be wary of that because you could probably drum up a lot of traffic with a pay-per-click vendor on those types of terms. And they'd start bragging about things like vanity metrics. So basically how much traffic I got to your website. Like traffic is easy to inflate. Anybody can get traffic to a website right away. But making sure you're getting the right kind of traffic, that's a lot trickier and requires some better targeting things in place. So the types of things to get good targeting, here's basically a quick list of must-haves. If you're considering doing pay-per-click yourself, or if you have hired somebody as a pay-per-click manager, here are the things I think you should ask them about. These tend to be budget devastating things if you do not control them. And unfortunately, they are the default settings when you create a pay-per-click campaign. So you really want to make sure you're checking these boxes on your list before you launch something. So first and foremost, geographic context. So where should my ads show up? Maybe you could provide international services, but that doesn't mean that you probably should, depending on what your budget's looking like, right? So we might need to think a little bit more strategically about that. By default, Google shows your ads in the United States for people who show interest in my location. So what that literally means is global. Like right out the gate, your ads could show up literally all over the planet. So if someone shows an interest in services in the United States, but they're based in, Europe or India or something like that, then you are applicable to show up there. So try to control that. And I would recommend probably starting granular and tight if you have a limited budget, and then expanding depending on how you're seeing your performance shake out. Ad scheduling. So when should my ads show up? So say one of your goals is to drive like phone calls to your business during your operating hours, you should control your ads so they don't show up outside of your business hours, right? By default, your ads will show up all the time. So already thinking about that being paired without controlling your geographic context, you're showing up globally all the time, and you're probably drumming up a ton of clicks, but that doesn't mean that they're meaningful, and it's probably eating your budget right away. Keyword match types. So I won't go into too much depth about this. You can definitely read about this. Keywords don't exactly mean what you think they mean as far as pay-per-click is concerned. So if I'm bidding on a keyword like Apple or something like that, that has a lot of different intentions, and Google tries to pair me with all those different intentions it might be. So if I have an apple farm or orchard or something like that, my hope is I would show up for things like apple picking, apple tours, apple cider, whatever. In actuality, I'm probably also showing up for things like Apple computers or smartwatches or tablets or things that are completely irrelevant to what I do. You can control that intent with match types. By default, Google will not do that. They will give you the broadest match setting that you can. And so you're literally gonna be showing up all over the world all the time for completely irrelevant things. Bidding strategy. So how do you wanna go about putting in your bid for those keywords? By default, they use what's called a target CPA bid, which is, long story short, you're trying to pay for your conversions only. It doesn't ever shake out like that. You end up paying a ton of money for clicks. I've seen in some cases people spend $30 to $50 per click because it didn't work out like they hoped it would on the conversion front. So I would recommend trying to control that with something manual and say, I only want to pay $1 per click ever. Boom, you're done. Now you don't have to worry about those like crazy inflated click costs ruining your performance. Last but not least, the display network. So do you want your ads to show up there? The display network is basically outside of the search result landscape. Now you're on the millions and millions of websites that have partnered with Google to sell banner space. By default, your ads will show up there. And a lot of times that's completely irrelevant to people, again, considering the whole list of things above that we've just described. So try to make sure that that's turned off. It won't be turned off unless you do it yourself while you're putting these things together. Last but not least, a good question to ask yourself or your manager is, what are we testing? And quick little hint, look at everything above that list. Those are great things to be testing out and trying to refine as you go forward. So if it's a geographic strategy, maybe you're looking at the state of Georgia and you want to refine your county bid strategy. So maybe some counties are better business opportunities for you than others, increasing your bids in those areas and decreasing in counties that might not get you the best business results. Ad scheduling, we talked about that. So maybe there's core times of the day you get better activity than others. You get the idea. So, pay-per-click is cool in the sense that you can get these really great conversion opportunities, but it's also great because you effectively have paid for a, what's the word I'm looking for? Like a market group, a market study. You can learn a lot about, like, those usually cost thousands of dollars. You've got it for sometimes hundreds of dollars. All right, last but not least, some handy tools that I think you should have in your toolbox if you're going down these routes. So tracking tools, being able to make sure you're measuring what's happening on your website. These are all free, keep in mind. So Google Analytics and Google Search Console. Google Analytics will tell you where your traffic's coming from, how much. You can look at it at any window of time. It'll also show you how users are engaging with your website. So, are they bouncing prematurely? Are they filling out forms? That kind of stuff, you can learn that there. Google Search Console looks more at the technical aspects of your website. So how do you find broken links when they pop up? That's where you would do that. If you have weird redirect issues, you can clean that stuff up with Google Search Console. That's another big SEO win. Keyword research, we talked about Answer the Public. It's a fun tool. It's a great place to mine content ideas. A way you can implement keywords into your website is with a SEO plugin called Yoast. That's the most popular one. It's very compatible with something like WordPress if you're using that. And then last but not least, there's a couple of preview tools. So again, I'd like to talk about the marketability of things like your title tag and your meta description. So making sure those look attractive. You can use these tools to be able to do that. If you're in the pay-per-click world, this tool will let you see how your ad would actually render if you're putting together a text ad. So it's a great way to make sure they look good in addition to having a keyword inserted in them. All right, and that's all I got. So I figured I could answer questions either from the presentation or just whatever you got from your own work experiences. I'm happy just to keep it free form from here on out.
So I was gonna say, like right now, so Andrew helped me change we adjusted my regular AdWords because of pandemic. We didn't make them go away. We just adjusted them accordingly. So what did we do? We reduced the spend, and we paused a couple. Mm-hmm. But we added the virtual co-working to that.
Yep.
And I learned about, and I'm really good about like doing my snippets and stuff like that, but I didn't know about like Open Graphic. I still haven't actually figured out where that is, Andrew. So perhaps you could show me.
Yeah, we'll save some time and go through that, sure.
But like little stuff like that, like, yeah. So I adjusted it for right now because it's severely impacting my business. But and I'll slowly add it back in. But are you seeing other stuff like that right now, Andrew? People adjusting?
Depends on who I'm working with. So I work in the business to business space largely. That's the company I work for. We're focused on that. And we have like a client that's involved in the life sciences industry, and they're not seeing anything slow down because, you know, life sciences is huge right now for actually combating the COVID. In other cases, if you're selling something that is impacted economically by it, then yeah, we see some changes in how people are addressing things. So it all kind of depends.
Cool.
Yeah.
Jadelle, Amy, Jeremy, did you guys have any questions specifically for Andrew about any of this? I mean, it's a ton of stuff and it's good stuff, but.
Yeah, I was just curious about something, and sorry if you covered this. I didn't show up till a little late, so sorry if I missed this part, but I'm wondering about SEO and social, specifically like Instagram. And so my wife's business is she runs an art studio and teaches classes for kids and adults. And she does a ton of work on Instagram. And I'm wondering if there's good things that I could help her with to sort of augment that things that would go well together rather than sort of just shouting into the void sometimes. That's what it feels.
Sure. I know Instagram, like in platform, a similar search function are your hashtags, you know, and those still seem to matter from everything that I've read recently about that. Ways to blend the two, I would try to recommend maybe try to find some way to repurpose whatever images you're gathering for Instagram and finding a way to incorporate those on like a website. That in of itself, having content that's regularly getting added to your site, whether that's multimedia based like photographs or video, is a great way to basically, again, incentivize search engines to come back to you. So whenever possible, repurpose content, right? It's one of the great things about gathering photographs or having an active multimedia based thing is there's a lot of different ways you can spin that. So maybe if you take a great photograph of an art piece or something that it might be, you know, you could create a blog about that one particular thing, like what happened that day, like what was the inspiration behind it, right? Maybe you just highlight one or two of them as sort of an ongoing kind of like, call it like an autobiography or something like that for your website. I don't know if those are applicable ideas to you.
Yeah.
mind.
Okay. Do you think it makes a difference if you're like, let's say you have a photograph and you're posting the same photo to Instagram and then you put the same photo on the website? Is that like a good, bad, neither?
That's a good thing, I think. Honestly, it's not going to like favor it, as Google is going to say, yes, I'm rating this higher than a different photo because it's already been used. I'd say it's a good thing because for you, you've cut down your time and you've multiplied how one piece of content can be leveraged. So a big factor for everybody right now is time, right? Like how much time you're spending doing some of these things. So the more you can spin one piece of content or asset, whatever that might be, like the better for you. You won't get penalized for it or anything like that. They're your photographs. You're allowed to use them however you want. You obviously also have the added benefit of Google image search there. So any images you're putting on your website can be crawled and then added to Google's as image results. So, you know, again, maybe naming your file something really specific. So it's not just, you know, the default from your camera. So it's like exe2001.jpg. Try to name the file specific, provide like an alt tag, that kind of stuff. And I think you'll see some really good SEO perks there as well.
Okay.
So,
thanks.
on the alternate tags, so on the images, you name the images, but then there's the alternate tag. Should it be the same? Should it be the same thing on both, or should it be different?
Yeah, the actual intent of the alt tag is in case your image doesn't render for some reason on someone's website, to describe what they would be seeing if that doesn't actually show up. So try to like trick whatever that is. I'm not saying that's what you were suggesting, Catherine, but like sometimes people try to make that just like a keyword opportunity. That's not really the expressed purpose of it per se. So just try to describe whatever that image would be briefly. That oftentimes includes a keyword, which is great, but it doesn't have to.
Okay. All right. That was because I'm never quite sure what I should put there. So I always do the same thing in both spots because I don't know what to do, because I know I need to put something there. I just don't know what.
Yeah.
So, okay.
That can work. That usually is fine to do that. But the core purpose of the alt tag is just think about what people could read to understand what it would have been had it not rendered.
Okay. Okay. That's good to know. I had no idea.
Yeah.
Jadelle, do you have any questions? Because you were all excited about this last night when I told you about it.
Yes. So I recently invested in Yelp, which is pay-per-click, and it just seemed like it was useless. So you're saying that I should, I don't really know what to ask about Yelp other than, is it good to use pay-per-click for, say I have a class coming up and I have a deal or like a coupon? Should I use pay-per-click there? And see what I'm getting at, maybe?
Yeah, for sure. I had looked at a Yelp presentation once a long time ago for an apartment portfolio owner. They were approached by Yelp and were given like the sales pitch. And I remember at the time thinking what I read through is that targeting in there seemed really just generic and non-specific. And I didn't like that, and I advised them to avoid it. Another reason I don't like Yelp in that way is because they kind of are like hostage-ing you into using their platform in a way, right? Because it's a review-based system. And if reviews matter to you, like you need to show up in those spots. I just sort of didn't like the overall package, to be honest. I'm not saying it couldn't work, but I don't know a ton about it because it seemed skeptical to me at the time. As for running promos, like, yes, like pay-per-click in search engines is a great way to do that because you can run it temporarily. You can offer promo codes. There's a lot of different features if you have a temporary promotion you're trying to run that you can do for a short period of time with Google Ads. And you can set your own budgets. I think Yelp had some requirements, some basic packages to spend in there. Google doesn't do that. So you can literally spend $5 if you want, just see how it goes. So you got that flexibility there.
So a couple things. So we actually have a member here who works for Yelp.
Oops, my bad.
So no. I mean, I post pictures there because it's free, but I don't do any of the paid stuff. I did try it out last year for a little while and I wasn't pleased with the results, so I stopped. So I could definitely connect you with Christina, Jadelle. And
That would be great.
whenever I have events, I post. You can create events in, I do it in Facebook events. I do in Google My Business. You can create events. You can do it in Alignable. You can do it in, I do it in nextdoor.com, and I do it in LinkedIn. And every time this event was in all of those places. I also did some social media around this particular event. And I used some of those questions that you posed, Andrew, because those were helpful, that you were going to address during this presentation. So yeah, that's what I do with particular events. But I haven't actually had a lot of luck with any promotions that I've done. So I'm glad you asked that question, Jadelle, because I have offered, like, 14% off Valentine's Day special, or I don't know, like Pi Day special. And I just kind of gave up on that.
I would say too, the focus of this particular presentation was on search, but I think Catherine hit a really important thing. Search is not the only place to get visibility, and certainly a good digital channel mix is really important because people get their information from all sorts of different places. You can't do everything, right? Like, you can't spend all your time on every single platform. So figuring out what the right mix is for you is something I always recommend doing. A lot of times that includes some search, but it might include a little bit of LinkedIn or maybe a little bit of Instagram, like Jeremy was pointing out. So, diversify and repurpose whatever you can.
Reuse content. Evergreen content is a lovely thing.
Totally. Yeah.
Any other questions for Andrew? No? Well, thank you so much, Andrew, so much. I miss you. I miss having you here every day. And once the pandemic's done, you can come visit again at some point. And this was amazing and incredibly helpful. And I'm really looking forward to being able to share it with all the other members as well. So everybody have a lovely rest of your day. And thank you again. And I will see you next time. Next week, we're having a session on keeping it, how to do PR when everything is shut down. So perhaps you'll be able to make next week as well.
Cool. Yeah. If anybody has any questions that they thought later, feel free to email me. I'll happily answer whatever I can for you. So.
Oh, and Andrew is still on the Slack channel too, by the way.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, y'all.
Thanks a bunch.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.